The world of computers can be a scary place, and in this video, we can help make it not so scary. We'll go over the anatomy of a computer, throw in a few recommendations for parts, and talk about some accessories to consider. Just a disclaimer, this is not a video on how to use a computer. We'll leave that for another video. Now without further ado, let's begin. Starting from the top and working our way down, we'll start with the monitor. The monitor is what you'll use to actually see what you're doing. If you know someone who can use a computer without a screen, please call the X-Men because that's not normal. Jokes aside, when looking for a monitor or even multiple monitors, there's a few things you'll want to consider. Just like TVs, monitors are sized in inches, so you'll want to find out how big the display is by looking at its measurements. Another thing to consider is the resolution of the monitor. Resolution in this context refers to the number of pixels per inch. The more pixels, the sharper and clearer your image will be. The last thing you'll need to consider is the refresh rate. This determines how fast your monitor will be able to display an image. Refresh speed is measured in hertz, which tells you how many times the image is displayed on the screen. So if the monitor says 60 hertz, that means it can display 60 images a second. This is more important when using your PC for gaming. If you're just using it for news articles or documents, a high refresh rate isn't necessary for that. If you're still not confident in finding one yourself, here's a few monitors we found online you might want to consider. Computer cases can be unique. Bodies come in all shapes and sizes, and computer cases are no different. Just like a body, the case is what's going to hold all your parts inside. There are 4 common body types of computer case: full tower, mid tower, mini tower, and small form factor, or SFF for short. Starting with the full tower, this is the largest case that you can buy. So if you want to add a lot of high-end components, this is going to give you plenty of real estate to work with. If you're a hardcore gamer, this is a must pick. Moving on, we have the mid-tower case. The most common type of case, the mid-tower or ATX, is probably the most versatile case on this list. With a large list of compatible parts and enough space for just about any configuration, the mid-tower is an easy recommendation for anyone building a PC for the first time. Next on the list, the mini tower. This is for the people who don't need a powerful, bulky graphics card inside their machine and prefer to use their PC for office work related tasks. You won't be able to go too crazy with parts since the smaller size limits what you can install, but if you're concerned about price, these are usually the cheapest cases to go with. Lastly, we have the SFF. Small form factor, as the name suggests, is made to take up as little space as possible and are popularly used for home theaters or portable PCs. A nice benefit to SFFs is that some cases also come with motherboard cooling. And that's it for cases. Here's what we recommend for each category. No, not her. The motherboard is the main circuit board where all of your main components get plugged into. This is where each component gets fed power and communicates with each other. Think of it like a central nervous system or a bustling city hub. Selecting the right motherboard is important, as finding parts for it, if you decide to upgrade it, could become more difficult. A few things you might want to consider are how big or small is your case going to be and is it compatible? How many components are you plugging into your motherboard? What's your budget? Motherboards mostly come in 3 sizes, ATX being the most common and easiest to buy parts for. Micro ATX or MATX is smaller, cheaper, and less upgradable than your standard ATX motherboard. Lastly, there's the Mini ITX, which is surprisingly more expensive than the Micro ATX despite being smaller. It's the smallest motherboard on this list and therefore can facilitate some interesting builds at the cost of less RAM ports and less room for VRMs or voltage regulator modules, which means overclocking your PC's performance is gonna become a bit harder. That's all for motherboards for now. Here's what we recommend. Since explaining the entire function of a CPU could fill its own video, we'll keep it short and sweet. If the motherboard is the nervous system, then the CPU would be the brains. The CPU, or the computer processing unit, is where all the logic, math, and information processing happens. The better your CPU, the faster it can make those computations happen, and the more it can multitask. Thankfully, CPUs scale in quality on a linear path. The more cores a CPU has, the more capable it is, so if you need to hardcore game or edit videos, you'll want a CPU with more cores. Types of CPUs play out like this. Here's some of our recommendations for you. RAM, or random access memory, is like the computer's short-term memory. It helps the CPU operate on multiple tasks at once, and the more RAM you have, the faster your PC can complete these tasks. Now, if you're just using your PC to browse the internet or work on some basic documents, you probably won't need that much RAM. Somewhere around 8 GB would suit you just fine. However, if you're intending on pushing your PC to its limits, then something in the range of 32 GB would be preferable. You can install as much RAM as you want, but at a certain point it might be overkill. A very important thing to consider when choosing what RAM to buy is compatibility. You need to make sure your motherboard and RAM are going to play nice. This means checking which DDR generation your motherboard uses. The differences between each generation are the number of pins and the position of the notch on the RAM stick. Thankfully, RAM is one of the easiest things to install, as you just pop them into their respective slots. With all that said, here's our recommendations for RAM. Graphics! That's right, folks. Your favorite buzzword is here. The GPU, or Graphics Processing Unit, is responsible for making high-speed, repetitive calculations that can occur simultaneously in processing digital images. As many gamers know, GPUs are important. So if you're going to splurge on anything, make it the GPU. The most expensive GPUs as of this video go for upwards of $1,600 to $1,700. Which, speaking of, here's our recommendations. If you're watching this video after humanity has adopted brain chips as the main way of interacting with a computer, then please disregard this section and enjoy the rest of your daily allotted internet credits. For the rest of you who still use their meat hocks to interface with a screen, this is the part where we talk about the keyboard and mouse. If you somehow got to this video without knowing what these were, then congratulations, you should play the lotto with that luck. To put it plain and simple, the keyboard is where you input letters and numbers, and the mouse is how you select and drag things on the screen. These devices come in many shapes and sizes, ranging from your default out-of-the-box mechanical keyboard with 2-button with scroll wheel mouse to the RGB monstrosities that will make your desk look like a unicorn threw up on it. Getting started with a keyboard and mouse won't break the bank unless you go looking for something with a lot of bells and whistles, or in this case, lights and buttons. Here are our recommendations for each price tier. A computer would not be complete without a means of retaining all that data you're about to put on it. This is where the hard drive comes in to hold in all your documents, photos, programs, and most importantly, your operating system. If you're not concerned about price and don't mind using less storage, we'd recommend going with a solid-state drive for fast loading times. However, if you're someone who needs a lot more space to work with and values reliability, then a hard disk drive might be a preferable option for any data archiving or backups. Typically, hard disk drives will last longer than solid-state drives, but with how the technology is improving, this may not be an issue for long. Here are our recommendations for both. That's all we have for this video. We hope this guide was simple, but most of all helpful. If you have any recommendations or feel that we could have added more, please leave a comment below. Big thanks to all of the sources we used in the making of this video. They'll be in the description. Take it easy, everyone.